Hi, I'm Christina and welcome back to another one of my cancer translation videos. So just like I do in my other videos, I'm going to take a concept about cancer or cancer care and one that's usually kind of complicated and a little difficult to understand and try to explain it to you in a way that will be easy for you to understand. You don't need a medical degree or any kind of scientific background to really be able to grasp by the time I'm done, hopefully, in explaining it to you. So I'm just going to try to break it down into layman's terms for you. And this one is going to be about the cancer staging system. So everybody's heard about stage 4 cancer or stage 3 cancer or whatever. The cancer staging system, which is what everybody thinks of as the way to describe how bad your cancer is. Well, that's kind of what it is, but that's not entirely what it is. And because that's what everyone thinks it is, there's a myth that goes with it. So I have lots of pet peeves about misunderstandings about cancer. And this is one of my really big ones. And I call it the stage 4 cancer myth. You've probably heard this one. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You hear somebody say, "Oh, did you hear? So-and-so's got stage 4 cancer. So sad. They're not long for this world." Oh, and I hear that and it just drives me nuts. And I say, no, that is not true. Because stage 4 cancer is not an automatic death sentence for everyone. Back in the 1950s, yeah, probably was. But it is no longer an automatic death sentence for everyone for multiple reasons that we're going to get into. But as an example, kind of like this. If I came to you and I said, "I just got a brand new Mazda hatchback." And then you came to me and said, "Well, yeah, but I know somebody that got a new Toyota hatchback over a year ago and the engine dropped out of it before they even had it a year." So, I mean, do I need to worry that the engine's going to drop out of my brand new car now? No, it's not really a valid comparison to compare my brand new car to your friend's car. I mean, there are all kinds of circumstances that are different here, not to mention the least of which is that they're made by 2 different companies, and then a whole bunch of other situations that probably make things very, very different between the two. I probably don't need to worry that the engine's going to just drop out of the bottom of my car because I bought a hatchback. One thing that's similar doesn't make them have the same bad outcome. Similarly, just because 2 people have stage 4 cancer does not mean they will both have the same bad outcome. And I've said this a ton of times in my other videos, and I'm going to say it a ton more times from here and on out, is that 2 people with cancer have 2 different diseases. Cancer is not one disease. Cancer as a whole is not one disease. Different kinds of cancer are different diseases. And even amongst people that have the same kind of cancer, their course of disease is going to be different for them. So it is not fair to compare 2 people and assume that what happened to one person is going to happen to another person. So don't be that person. Don't be that person that hears that somebody got diagnosed with cancer that's stage 4 and just writes them off for dead and starts talking about them like they're already dead. That's, first of all, not very kind. It's just not a good thing to do. It's not very kind to that person. And it's also not realistic these days. There are plenty of people that we successfully treat with stage 4 cancer. What I call successfully treating, what those of us in the cancer treatment world call successfully treating, you may call cure. We don't like that word. We don't like the word cure. It's not a scientific word, but I'll give it to you. We'll say there are plenty of people with stage 4 cancer that are cured, successfully treated. Not everyone, but it does happen a good bit these days. So don't go ahead and assume that somebody's as good as get dead just because they've got a stage 4 cancer diagnosis. Now, that being said, let's just talk about the whole staging system. I'm going to talk to you here about what the staging system is for, what it means, what the components of it are, and just show you a little bit about what these different stages mean. Stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. You've probably figured out 1 is the least bad. 4 is the worst of the stages of cancer you can have. But what do these things mean? I'm going to go into that a little bit. I'm not going to go into it in so much detail that you're going to know how to stage every kind of cancer, because it's very complicated and it's different for each different kind of cancer. And that would take me hours and hours and hours. But I'll give you a better idea of what these things mean. And I'm going to let you see how it's just very complicated and very different. And I think you'll get a better idea of why my pet peeve just drives me bonkers by the time I'm done. But I'm going to take a little break here, and I'm going to draw on my fun board behind me, and I'll be right back. All right? See you in a sec. Okay, I'm back. I got some drawing done, but we're going to ignore that for right now. First of all, let's just talk about this staging system. So the stage 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you hear about is just the tip of the iceberg. That's not the whole staging system. That's just a little bit of it. Before we even get to that, what's the whole point of this staging system? Patients, family, the general public think that the staging system is just something that doctors use to tell you how close you are to dying or how bad this cancer is. And that's part of it, although we don't call it that. We call it prognosis. What your outlook is, how well or not well you're likely to do. So stage 1 is the least bad cancer you can have, and it goes up to stage 4. There's a whole lot of variation in there. If we only had 4 categories, telling people if you had 1, 2, 3, or 4 wouldn't give them much information. And what the staging system does is it's also a way for clinicians to give other clinicians information about your cancer. So it's an information system that we use to communicate with other providers. And we also use that information system to help us determine what the best treatment action or course of action is for your kind of cancer. So we have all studied in this new age of medicine. Everything is studied relentlessly. People share their outcomes. We do case studies, we publish them. Numbers are collected. Worldwide cancer statistics are collected. They're put together. They're published. We see who does well on what drugs, what treatments work, what does better, who does better when they get surgery, who does better when they get radiation. We put all this data together and we share it worldwide. And we learn from each other across the world what treatments do better for what kinds of patients. So we assign this stage to a patient, and we learn and we use what we have learned to determine, okay, this patient is at this stage, and we know from experience worldwide that these patients generally do best when they get this kind of treatment. So we use this stage that we assign to the patient to help guide us in assigning treatment to the patient. Now, but we don't just use stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. There's a lot more to it. There's a T stage, what I've got here. There's an N stage, and there's an M stage. Now, so if I'm in clinic and I get a phone call and I'm getting a referral from another institution, and I ask that physician, okay, what's the patient's stage? I'm not going to hear them tell me, oh, they're stage 4. They know that's useless to me. I mean, that's not what I want to hear at that moment. That doesn't give me much information. I'm expecting to hear something like, oh, he's a T2, N2B, M0. Now, I just spit out a lot of stuff at you, and I'm going to explain what that means. So there's all this other information that you put together, and you put it all together, and all these things added up put a patient into a category of 1, 2, 3, or 4. But this individual information is the important stuff for doctors. This is the staging information that we hear about the most, not so much the 1, 2, 3, or 4 usually. So let me tell you what this is. The T stage that you have is tumor, T for tumor, the tumor stage. The T is describing your primary tumor, your main tumor. And I should also back up and say that clearly we're talking about solid tumor here. Blood cancers are staged entirely differently. And there are a couple of kinds of cancers that don't have staging systems. There's some really weird ones. Eye cancers, some of the eye cancers don't have staging systems, but most solid tumors follow this general system, which is called the AJCC system of TN. It also is combined with the TNM system to make the AJCC staging system that we use worldwide. So we can communicate with each other across international borders, actually, to talk about tumor stages. And so T, tumor stage, is what we use to describe the tumor. It starts out being about size mostly. T1 is the smallest, usually about a centimeter, and this varies from disease site to disease site. And usually as you go to a T2 or a T3, they get bigger and bigger and bigger. T4 usually is when it starts invading structures that are around it. So, but with different kinds of cancer, it can also mean different kind of things. So, for example, if you have laryngeal cancer, larynx cancer, voice box cancer, the T2 and the T3, because that's a little tiny organ in there, that little thing that wiggles when you talk. That's tiny. So it's, you don't have to have a very big tumor for it to be a big deal for that kind of cancer. So what makes it a T2 and a T3 is how much it impacts that little muscle from moving. So cord mobility, or the fact that it paralyzes your vocal cord, moves it up from a T2 to a T3. So sometimes it's not just about size. Sometimes it's about the function that's involved in where that tumor is. So as you can see right there, each different kind of cancer has something totally different that's going to give you a different little piece of information in that staging system. So here again, if you're trying to compare two different patients and they don't even have the same kind of cancer, you're not going to be getting the same kind of thing. So that's your T stage. You're describing something about the size, which for the most part usually starts, about the tumor, which usually it goes along the lines of size, but can involve other things like I said, with larynx, the movement. And when you get up to T4, it's usually about it invading other structures. Then you have the N stage for node, like lymph node, nodal stage. And this N0 is great, means that there are no other lymph nodes around that primary tumor that are positive with cancer. That's the best. And then N1, usually, but not always, usually N1 just means you have one very small node that's positive, but in some cases it doesn't even mean that. And then as you go on to N2 and N3, 3 is as high as the N stage goes, it means different things for different kinds of cancer. Again, it's not the same, which is why we had this big fat book that describes what N2 means for laryngeal cancer, as opposed to N2 for lung cancer means two different things entirely. So for, say, going back to our laryngeal cancer, N1 does indeed mean just one node that's only on one side of the neck and it's less than 3 centimeters, but N2 can be one node that is 3 to 6 centimeters, or it can be multiple lymph nodes that are on one side of the neck, or it can be nodes on both sides of the neck. So you've got to factor all these kind of things in to figure out whether you're in one, less than 3 centimeters, or one node that's 3 to 6 centimeters, or more than one node, but doesn't matter what size. So it gets all kinds of complicated in there. So you've got to assign an N stage to it, right? So you have a T stage, you assign a T stage to it, you assign an N stage to it, and then you come to the M stage. A lot of times we don't even say M0 or M1, we just say has metastasis or it has spread. This is the big one. This is the mother of all staging criteria. This is what people should be worried about when they talk about, oh, so-and-so's got cancer. This is where you need to worry. These days, and this hopefully is going to change in the future, but at this point in time, we do not consider someone whose cancer has spread to a distant region of their body or another organ in their body to be curable. We can treat it, but we do not consider it to be typically curable. Have cures happened? Yes. Is it possible to prolong someone's life for a good while, for years, and have them have a good quality of life? Yes, that's what we're able to do with some of our new biologic treatments, is to, get their disease to very small amounts within their body and let them to go on and continue functioning in their life. But right now, we cannot tell you that if you have disease that has left where it started and spread to another part of your body, that means it has metastasized or is a M1, that we can cure you. This is the big line in the sand. The big line in the sand is not whether you are stage 4 or not. The big line in the sand is whether you are an M1 or whether you have distant metastasis or whether it is spread to another part of your body. So here's the thing. About 50% of the cancer kinds that there are out there, you can have stage 4 disease and not have a distant spread of cancer. About 50% of the kinds of cancer that are out there, it's automatically a stage 4 if you have a distant spread. So what I'm saying to you is, telling you that you have stage 4 cancer without telling you what kind it is does not tell you whether you've crossed this line in the sand. That does not tell you if you have curable disease or not. That does not give you that critical piece of information. You can be stage 4 and not have it spread to other parts of your body, or you can be stage 4 and have it spread to other parts of your body, depending on where that is in your body. Example, colon cancer. Colon cancer, as soon as it spreads to another part of your body, and for colon cancer, it's most frequently liver, as soon as it's in somebody's liver, another organ, it's automatically stage 4. Forget everything else, doesn't matter what any other parts of it look like. It's stage 4 once it goes to the liver. However, here's where I've drawn a nice grid here so that I can show you how much this differs. Here I have drawn out all the ways you can be a stage 4 cancer patient and have laryngeal cancer. So this is the way you would put staging factors together to come up with a stage 4 laryngeal cancer. You can have any of these groups of options. I'm going to try to breeze through this. It's not important that you understand this exactly. It's just important that you understand that there's a lot of different ways you can be a stage 4 laryngeal cancer patient. You can have a T1, 2, 3, or 4A. I'm not really going to get into what those are. Just basically know that means from little to big, into, and not have any spread anywhere, and that's called stage 4 laryngeal cancer. You can have T4A and N0 or N1, no spread. Any T, which is just, you can say you can have the tiniest little primary tumor, but then have multiple, N3, which would be multiple tumors on both sides of your neck, but it isn't spread anywhere else. That's a stage 4. Or let's just go all the way down to the bottom here. Let's say you have, it says any T. Say you have T1, you have a little tiny tumor in your larynx. Any N, say you just have one little node that's positive, but you have also one tumor in your lung. That's stage 4 also. You can have all these different combinations and still be stage 4 cancer. And it's tremendously different if you have a huge primary tumor and you got lots of big lymph nodes here, and you've got lots of disease in your lungs because it's already spread somewhere. That is really different, and you've got a much different prognosis than you do if you have a T1 N2, like say 4 centimeter lymph node here, M0, no spread, cancer of the larynx, which still means stage 4. Those are wildly different things. So my point here, and I hope I'm still not confusing you. My point here is that you cannot say that someone has stage 4 disease and assume that that means the same thing for everyone. You can be very treatable and have stage 4 disease. A lot of people are diagnosed with stage 4 disease. Why is that? Because a lot of times you just don't know you have cancer until it gets to a point where it makes itself known by causing some symptoms. And earlier stages of cancer just don't get noticed usually. So this whole thing of, oh my God, they've got stage 4 cancer, they're as good as dead, is ridiculous, especially this day and age. Like I said, the thing that really should be the concern is, has their cancer spread to another part of the body? When their cancer has spread to another organ or another part of the body, that is a whole different ballgame. That's when it's very, very tough to treat. Now, and when I say distant or spread to another part of the body, oh, my phone's going to ring here. It's going to be a telemarketer. So it's going to keep ringing. I mean very far away. Nodes that are kind of just right around the tumor, that's regional. That's not distant spread. That's not distant metastasis. That's just regional spread. So hopefully this makes some kind of sense. And hopefully you can see that if you have stage 4 lung cancer and stage 4 colon cancer, it can mean totally different things. If you have stage 4 colon cancer, you definitely have cancer that is spread to another organ of your body, and that is a much more severe prognosis or serious prognosis than someone who has a stage 4 larynx cancer who only has a small tumor on their vocal cord and 2 more, say, nodes over here that also falls into the stage 4 category. Those are 2 vastly different things. So stage 4 is not secret code for you're about to die. Okay, so just understand that. Now, if you want to know how someone got to be a stage 4, or what a T, N, or M means for your particular kind of cancer, or the kind of cancer that someone you know has, you can look that up online. And the reason I'm not going through it, like I said, is because it's very complicated. It's very different depending on the different kinds of cancer. Like, for example, for lung, like if it involves a certain nerve, it will increase the T stage. For liver cancer, if the tumor involves a certain artery, it will increase the T stage. So you've got to know these different specific things for each different cancer site to know how you get to these different stages of T, N, and M. And then you combine them together, and that combination together fits it into a group of stage 1, 2, 3, or 4. And you can find these tables online if you really want to see them. And what these staging groups are going to do is they're going to help your doctor figure out what the best treatment is for you. It will tell them something. It will tell you something about your prognosis. Obviously, 4 is much worse than 1. And it will definitely just allow your healthcare providers to communicate with each other and give them information without going into a whole long spiel about your information. They can get information to each other quickly by just passing along a T, N, and M stage to each other, and that will give them a lot of information without having to go into a big long dialogue about what's going on. So that hopefully makes some sense. It's complicated. It's really complicated, but moral of the story is stage 4 does not correlate to a lifespan of any sort. So please don't make that assumption. Please don't join that rumor mill and start talking about someone being dead before they're dead. Not a nice thing to do. All right. I'll see you next time on my next cancer translation video. Oh yes. Go down there and like and subscribe, please. I'll be really happy if you do. Thanks. Bye.